أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد أما بعد. Okay, so alhamdulillah, we had our last lesson discussing the word isti'adha and ta'awudh, its meaning, and how we said that it refers to seeking Allah's refuge and protection from shaitan and all of the rest of the creation that is associated with the shaitan, for example. Okay? Anything that is meant to lead you away from the deen of Allah and throw you into the pits of the hellfire. So yeah, we mentioned some statements, and then we talked about the different ways of uttering ta'awudh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أعوذ بالسميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الشيطان الرجيم وهمزه ونفخه ونفثه. And another one we mentioned, Allahumma, combining all of these. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم من همزه ونفخه ونفثه. So inshallah we are going to look into the linguistic explanation of each of these words individually, inshallah, in the forthcoming lectures. But today, just to start off with a little recap. So, ways of uttering at-ta'awudh and the obligation of uttering at-ta'awudh. طيب. We mentioned that the obligation of uttering ta'awudh is one of a istihbab and not one of fard. It's one of being a sunnah and not being something which is compulsory or a wajib. So anyone who is thinking obligation means something which is obligatory, not something which is something which is praiseworthy, something that should be done, something mustahab. So we explained this, that in the Sharia, obligation is of two types, right? Obligation, which is considered to be absolutely must to be something that must be done, and if someone does not do it, then they are held accountable and they are held responsible for their actions, or they may be punished if Allah decides to punish them. The second type of obligation is an obligation which is of a lesser degree, where you're expected to do it, but if for some reason you do not attempt that action, then you will not be held accountable, you will not be punished for it, and Allah may forgive, may still make other means for you to get closer to Him, right? But generally, istihbab is from hub. Hub is from love. So istihbab is the word istihbab, and we explained this before. That istihbab is a kind of obligation that is done to get near to Allah Azza, right? To attain His love. طيب. It's an obligation of a lesser degree. Okay, it's not an obligation that if you miss it or you neglect it, you are going to be held accountable or be punished. But it is something that is there to get you close to Allah Azza. طيب. Now we also explained this previously, that obligations, in whatever capacity they are, major obligations or minor obligations, all of them, the Sahaba, the manhaj of the Sahaba and the Tabi'een and those who follow them in ihsan, is to not leave even a single one of the actions of the wujub and the istihbab. The Sahaba, of course, never left anything on purpose, which is from the major obligations. And of course, also the things which were sunnah and lesser obligations, they would still attempt them. They would make an attempt to always commit to those actions of sunnah, of the actions which are mustahab, lesser obligations. And if they missed one of those things, for example, they missed praying the sunnahs of dhuhr, for example, they would regret it. They would get sad about it. Okay, so this manhaj, which is normally propagated by the fiqh-oriented schools, madrasas, where they teach you a very technical definition of things, and they don't connect it back to the sunnah and the practice of the Sahaba, it becomes very misleading. Then it becomes a practice of, okay, well, it's just mustahab, it's not wajib, so I'm not going to be I'm not going to be punished for this, for leaving this. So it becomes a matter of personal choice, right? Whereas the Sahaba, they would sternly advise each other. They would be very serious with advising each other on the sunnah. Tawasaw bil haqq. They used to do this tawasaw. They used to do wasiyah of each other. They used to advise and counsel each other to follow the sunnah. In fact, in one of the battles where the Mujaddideen, the Sahaba, they couldn't penetrate one of the fortresses of the Romans, they sent back for the Khalifa Umar radiallahu anhu, and they asked for more reinforcements and so on and so forth. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said to them, you don't need reinforcements. You're leaving a sunnah that's preventing you the nusrah. You're committing a sin of a lesser degree, which is, you're leaving something which is mustahab, something of the sunnah, which is not obligatory, obligatory, but you're leaving something, and because of that, the nusrah of Allah Azza wa Jal, the victory of Allah, is being delayed. Okay? So the Sahaba, they went back and they paid attention, and they realized that they had left the siwak. They were not brushing their teeth with the siwak. Okay? And so, subhanAllah, one night they, and this is a famous story, it's mentioned in the books of Tariq, with a sound narration, that the same night when they received this order from Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, that they must all fulfill the sunnah of the siwak, they all rushed that night into the woods and they started chopping, the siwaks, and started brushing their teeth. And the guards who saw what happened, this scene of sharpening their teeth as it was, from their perspective, they got scared. And the next morning when they woke up, the fort was empty. The guards had left. They had ran away. Everyone ran away. Subhanallah. So they won. They had made a long siege, and they couldn't break through after all that effort. But subhanallah, just one sunnah, they revived it, and they won without even having to lift a single finger. Subhanallah. Okay, so the sunnah and the manhaj of the Sahaba, the methodology of the Sahaba, the practice of the Sahaba, is to not leave anything in the deen of Allah, whether obligatory or mustahab. This is as it pertains to doing actions. Okay, committing to performing the sunnahs, acting upon the knowledge that you learn. Okay, the Sahaba were not of a category where they would learn something and then start to categorize things in their mind. And decide, okay, well, this is wajib, so I'm going to do it, and this is sunnah, so I'm going to leave this. Okay, this is not something that happened with them. And even the Ummah, the Mujaddideen, the Sahaba, and then after them, and then those who came after them, subhanAllah, it is well known amongst them that they would practice, the sunnah, they would act upon the sunnah. In fact, Imam Ahmad, rahmahullah, was asked about his amazing, bewildering memory, subhanAllah, of the hadith that he memorized. Some say more than any other hafidh who has lived in the history of our heritage. And his simple response was, well, I've never learned a hadith, I've never come across a hadith except that I've acted upon it. So this is the manhaj of the Sahaba. This is just to give you, the students, the right mindset when it comes to approaching these issues of obligations, of something which is wajib, something which is mustahab, something which is makruh and haram. Makruh, something which is not punishable but is disliked in Islam, is a way to Allah's anger. Okay, it may not be punishable, but it may lead you to something which is disliked by Allah Azza wa Jal, and Allah Azza wa Jal as a result starts disliking you, and you get distant from Allah Azza wa Jal, and you are removed from His protection. Okay, and likewise, istihbab is something which is done to get closer to Allah after the wajibat. Like the famous hadith of the Prophet, where the Prophet said, the abd, I'm paraphrasing here, the abd, he gets closer to Allah through the wajibat. Okay, and there's no action in the religion that is more beloved to Allah than the wajibat, the compulsory actions. And from that is the prayer, the salawat, are the most beloved to Allah Azza wa Jal, the 5 daily prayers. And then after the 5 daily prayers, from the actions which are not compulsory but they are loved by Allah more than anything else in the category of lesser obligations, after the 5 daily prayers is the salatul witr, which is also referred to as tahajjud and qiyamul layl. Okay. In any case, so we were looking at ta'awudh, and I've said repeatedly that we are going to spend some time on learning the meanings of ta'awudh, its benefits, its obligations, its ahkam, all of that in detail, as well as the bismillah, inshallah. So last week we talked about the three different scenarios of reciting ta'awudh. Okay, it could be to do with the case of reciting the Quran generally, or secondly inside the salah, and thirdly in any other circumstance, such as like we at the beginning of an Islamic lecture, or reading an ayah inside a book, for example, and so on and so forth. What are the ahkam? So last week we said that reading the Quran generally or in the salah, it is a sunnah and mustahab. Okay, it is a sunnah and it is mustahab. Okay, and it is makruh to leave it. Okay, it is makruh to leave it. Okay, and likewise the same ruling applies to reading ta'awudh before you start giving a dars. Okay, the shaykh or the muallim, the teacher who gives a dars, he should ideally should say the ta'awudh, ay a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, or any of the other variations, to again provide that encapsulation of Allah's protection, that refuge for himself and the audience. So it is again from the general evidence we understand that it is also mustahab. There is nothing to say that it will be makruh to leave it. Okay, because the first two scenarios we said last week as well, that we have evidence from the sunnah that it is mustahab to do it, and makruh to leave it. The action of leaving the ta'awudh in reading the Quran or in the salah, it's actually makruh to leave it, and we gave evidences of it. Today inshallah we'll look at some of those statements again on the screen as well, inshallah. Okay, so we mentioned that the primary evidence for these rulings is the ayah in the Quran in Surah An-Nahl, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فإذا قرأت القرآن فاستعذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فإذا قرأت القرآن فاستعذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. So when you recite the Quran, first seek refuge in Allah from shaitan, Satan, the expelled from his mercy or the accursed. The accursed or the expelled from his mercy, all of these meanings inshallah we'll see how they come together in the word ar-rajim when we look at the meanings of these individual words. طيب. So let's have a look at the statements. I mentioned some of these last week, but let's have a look at them again, inshallah, just so that everything is set in stone in our minds about this obligation, inshallah. So Imam Tabari, Ibn Jarir Tabari, Abu Ja'far, he mentions in his tafsir, he says Allah Azza wa Jal, his command here is not in the form of an obligation. Okay, the command here is not in the form of an obligation. The commandment is an announcement. It's a khabar. Yani Allah Azza wa Jal is telling you when you do this action, then before you do this action you must say A'udhu Billah, not as an action of obligation. Okay, not something punishable if you don't do it, but rather as something of an advice, and ruled as a sunnah. Okay, it is an announcement. Allah is informing you of something, a praiseworthy action, and it is ruled as a sunnah. The reason is there is no differing opinions from Islamic scholars, i.e., it is an ijma', it's a consensus amongst the scholars that someone that leaves the recitation of ta'awudh before or after reciting the Quran has not left or neglected any of his obligations. Okay, any of his obligations. And it is this ijma' that Imam al-Tabari, because Imam al-Tabari rahimahullah is an imam of tafsir. Okay, his statements are considered to be evidence. Okay, inshallah, his tafsir is considered to be an evidence in the realm of tafsir of the Quran. Okay, inshallah. So when Imam al-Tabari says something, it is it's of a huge importance. Inshallah, and because he is essentially the peg that essentially settles down the authority in the tafsir of the Salaf al-Salihin. Okay, Imam al-Tabari rahmallah, he's from the pioneers, from the Mutaqaddimin, and his ara are not just, he's a mujtahid essentially, he's on the same level as Imam Shafi'i and others. Okay, although he came slightly after Imam Shafi'i, but he's in the same level in terms of his intellect, and his views and his opinions are considered to be a hujjah in the world of the books of tafsir, and the ulama of tafsir, they rely heavily on it. And even in the field of the tarikh, as well as the hadith. طيب. It is this ijma' that Imam al-Tabari has narrated. Ibn Kathir, in his tafsir, Ibn Kathir, the famous tafsir Ibn Kathir, he narrates this ijma'. He says, this is a command. So this essentially is a tafsir of Ibn Kathir of the same ayah. He mentioned this is a command from Allah the Exalted to his servants, delivered through the tongue of his Prophet ﷺ, that when they intend to recite the Quran, they should seek refuge with Allah from the accursed Satan. This command is a recommended act. It's mandub, it's mustahab. It's a recommended act. Okay, it's not obligatory. It's not an obligation of a major degree. Okay, it's not a major obligation. Inshallah, it's a recommended act. It's mandub, it's mustahab. Consensus on this was reported by Imam Abu Ja'far, Ibn Jarir, and other scholars. Okay, so Ibn Kathir, a few centuries later, he confirmed the ijma' of Imam Ibn Jarir. طيب. On this ayah, we have two commentaries which are important. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, commenting from his the Shafi'i scholarship, and as well as being, of course, one of the A'immah of the Sunnah, he mentions that indeed a ta'awudh is mustahab, Sunnah, and not an obligation, i.e. a major obligation, a wajib. It is Sunnah for everyone or for anyone that recites the Quran, whether in his prayer or otherwise. Okay, it is Sunnah for anyone that recites the Quran, whether in his prayer or otherwise. It's a famous book. Inshallah, we will read this book together. At-Tibyan fi Adabi Hamalat al-Quran. Okay, it's a short text. It's about with the hashiyah, it's a bit longer, but it's roughly 80-90 pages if you remove all the footnotes. But it's not that long. It's a very, very beautiful work, inshallah. So you'll study this book, inshallah, at some point. طيب. Lastly, we'll look at the statement of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah on this topic. He says, if someone leaves the recitation of isti'adha, so in terms of in the salah, okay, specifically in the salah, and we can sort of stretch this ruling to to apply onto the general case of reading the Quran. He says, if someone leaves the recitation of isti'adha because of his forgetfulness, ignorance, or on purpose even, it is not necessary for him to repeat it or perform sujood sahwi or sajda sahw, which is the sajda of forgetfulness. Okay. Now this is the ruling that Imam Shafi'i is giving through this. Okay. And I dislike anyone who purposefully leaves it, the recitation of the isti'adha. So he's telling you that it's makruh to leave it on purpose. Okay. If someone forgets it, or he's ignorant of the hukum of reciting isti'adha, or he does it on purpose, okay, the hukum is that he does not have to repeat his the isti'adha again. He doesn't have to in the next rak'ah, for example, or when he remembers in the Quran, reading the Quran, he recites the ta'awudh. He's not saying that he must do it. It's not necessary. Okay, and he does not even have to do the sajda sahwi, the sajda to sahw, the sajda of forgetfulness. Okay, this is the hukum. However, the Shaykh says, Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, he says, I dislike anyone who purposefully leaves it. Okay, i.e. the hukum is of makruh, for someone who does it on purpose. Okay, and I'm inclined towards someone that if he left it in his first rak'ah, to recite it in the subsequent rak'ah. So it is still recommended that if someone has forgotten reciting the isti'adha in the first rak'ah of the salah, for example, he said the dua istiftah, and then without saying A'udhu Billah, he starts his prayer with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and Alhamdulillah and so on and so forth. Right? He's missed the ta'awudh, he's missed the A'udhu Billah. Right? So Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah is saying that I'm inclined towards a position that someone, if he leaves reciting this in the first rak'ah and he remembers in the second, then he should do it in the second rak'ah. Tayyib, inshallah. Not that it's compulsory, but rather it's something which is mandub. Okay. Indeed, the only reason that is stopping me from commanding someone to repeat and recite the isti'adha, as in to declare it obligatory, wajib, is because the Prophet ﷺ taught the valid conditions of prayer, and he did not state the recitation of isti'adha or iftitah, as in the first dua that you say after saying Allahu Akbar, the first takbirah, as a condition. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ in his hadith and the fahm of the Salaf Salihin, the Sahaba, we have the conditions, the valid conditions of the prayer. We know the conditions of the prayer, and isti'adha or even iftitah is not one of them. Okay, so if someone leaves it, they've not committed a sin. So he says this shows that leaving isti'adha would impair, it defects someone's prayer, but it does not invalidate essential. Sorry, so that part is missing, but it may defect someone's prayer because of the lack of protection that he's missing, but it will not invalidate it. Okay, so inshallah, it will not invalidate it. طيب. So when it says it would impair his salah, not in terms of its reward, or it's his pillars or its conditions. No, none of that. Just the general reward of the prayer may be deduced, or he may get less out of his prayer because he's not protected from the shaitan. So his focus will be distracted. He'll be looking here and there. He'll be thinking about things in the salah. So he'll be generally distracted. طيب. So the person will get less out of a prayer. So his prayer will be impaired. It will be defected because of a lack of isti'adha at the beginning. Okay, inshallah. So I hope all of us are clear on the ruling of isti'adha. Yes, so mandub and mustahab are essentially synonymous. Both mean the same thing roughly. Two different words for the same concept, same term, inshallah. Okay, so this is the hukm on the obligation of the Quran. So make sure you guys, everyone, when you read the Quran generally, or you come across an ayah in the Quran in a book, or you read your salah, for example, you pray your salah, you make sure you say your isti'adha, say your a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, or in any of the other variations that we have looked at. Tamam? Okay, lastly, before we move on to the next section, the benefits of ta'awudh, we talked about this last session as well, but the importance of ta'awudh is in the fact that the entirety of your tawheed and the purpose of your creation depends on the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? And there's only one thing that exists in this world alongside yourselves that wants to distract you from that purpose, or better still, leave you far away from it and throw you into the abyss of the hellfire. And that enemy essentially is the shaitan. Okay? So when we talk about Tawheed, Iman, Islam, Ihsan, all of these terms that define our belief as Muslims and our way of life, our way of living, everything, all of that is encapsulated under the term of Tawheed, Tayyib, Iman. And all of this essentially is protected, it's pegged with the tawakkul of Allah Azza wa Jal, your reliance on Allah Azza wa Jal, yes? And your taqwa of Allah, right? How mindful you are of Allah's existence in all your actions. And shaitan, what he wants you to do is he wants you to forget that. Okay, he wants you to be distracted from that realization. Okay, so essentially, this fight with the shaitan is an ongoing. It's a sira'. It's a wrestling match. Essentially, you're involved in a wrestling match, a constant one at that, until your last breath. And the shaitan, he took a promise, right? He said that I will definitely, I will guide them astray. I'll misguide them, right? I will misguide the children of Adam alayhi salam, away from the rahmah of Allah, the mercy of Allah, the Jannah. It's a promise. He's on a mission, right? He's your adu mubin, as Allah calls him, right? He's a clear, blatant enemy to us as humans, and especially as Muslims, right? So ta'awudh, essentially, ta'awudh, isti'adha, is a very, very essential concept which stands at the heart of your tawheed. Okay, without this, you are at risk of damaging your iman and even dying in a state of kufr because you don't have the protection of Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? And inshallah, to understand that a bit more, I want to look at the complete context of this ayah that we looked at. So we looked at the initial part, right? فَإِذَا قَرَأَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. We read that initial part. The ayah goes on. It says, I'll just read the translation for you. I've put things in translation. The next verse says, indeed he has no authority, the shaitan has no authority over those who have believed and who rely upon their Lord. Okay? His authority is only over those who take him as an ally and those who associate partners with him. Okay, let that sink in. Read that translation again. That shaitan, his whole mission in this life, until the day of resurrection is established, is to misguide humanity. Misguide, lead astray the children of Adam alayhi salam. Okay? And your job, the only job that you have in this world, is to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. And his job is to distract you from that purpose. Okay? So now, he has made a promise that he will definitely misguide the children of Adam alayhi salam. Okay? So there's no one in the creation who is free from the trickery of shaitan. Not even the prophets. Right? Even the shayateen even tried to harm the prophets. Right? The famous hadith of the burning these sparks coming to the house of the Prophet, threatening to kill an attack from some of the shayateen from the jinn. They tried to burn the house of the Prophet. And Jibreel alayhi salam, he came down and taught him a special dua, and the Prophet recited it, and the calamity was flipped, and the Prophet was saved. And many other such incidents in the lives of the Prophet. So the shayateen, there's no one who's saved from that trickery or that treachery. And Allah Azza wa Jalla in this verse essentially is teaching you that the shaitan has no authority over those who have believed and, with a capitalized A and D, who rely upon their Lord. Okay? Who rely upon their Lord. طيب, inshallah. So, the benefits of ta'awudh are essentially linked to the wajibat of tawheed. Okay? The ta'awudh essentially, it protects your tawheed. It makes sure that when you die, regardless of the amount of minor sins you commit, you don't die as a mushrik, and you don't die as a kafir. You don't die as a disobedient, insult to Allah Azza wa Jal. So this ta'awudh is as the ulama, they used to call it, they would refer to it in the Urdu language, your orna bichona, right? It's something that is a must of your life, right? It's supposed to be a constant part of your life. Okay, it must be a constant part of your life. And I don't like to quote much of I don't like to refer to much of the Sufi literature, but there is one of the pious Salaf, who was on the Sunnah, who was an Athari in his Aqidah, in his belief, in his practices. But people made him out to be a Sufi saint of sorts, and decided worshipping him and started associating kufr with him. Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, rahimahullah. He was from the same madhab as Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, so he was very, very firm on Tawheed, and he was a Salafi in his Aqidah. He was from the Salaf al-Salihin, Ahlul Hadith, basically. And he said something very beautiful about this. He said that someone who recites ta'awudh, this ta'awudh essentially, with this ta'awudh, Allah Azza wa Jal grants him a guiding light. It's a light from Allah, a special light from Allah. It surrounds him. It encapsulates him. And that light pushes away any force of evil from him, any shaitan that you can imagine. SubhanAllah. Okay? So the tranquility of the heart, the fight with depression, the upbringing of your children, anything that you can imagine from the major goals of health and wealth and family that you can imagine, all of those are pegged, down to your connection with Allah and the amount of protection and refuge you've sought from Him. Okay, inshallah. Ibn Kathir rahmallah, he mentions some of these in the tafsir of this ayah. He says that the meaning of seeking refuge in Allah before beginning the recitation is to prevent the reciter from being confused or distracted in the recitation, to avoid it being muddled, as in the recitation, mixing it up, and more important than anything else, is to protect them from being hindered in reflection and contemplation on these verses that he's reading. Okay? It is the shaitan essentially, because he wants you to just be distracted from Tawheed. He wants you to be lose interest in Tawheed and Islam and your religion. What it does is it starts to put hurdles between yourself and the Quran. Okay, the first hurdle would be that, oh, it's such a big book. It is so much to learn in Islam. Islam is difficult. There's so much to practice, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the first step as a da'i would be to make it easy for the people. Tell them, look, Islam is easy. There's only a few things to learn, and if once you've learned that, inshallah, you can go about your life, and inshallah, you'll go to Jannah. Right? So making Islam easy for the people, making Islam as accessible and approachable for the people. طيب. The second thing is the shaitan, once he does that, and people, anyone who, for example, who does come close, close to the Quran, he passes that hurdle. The second thing would be to stop them from reflecting and contemplating the words of the Quran, the words of Allah Azza wa Jal, by busying them with the art of recitation. Learning Tajdeed, just improving your recitation, just learning the muqamat, just learning to read like the Misris, the Egyptians, and reading like the major Qurans. Although that is in itself an ibadah, okay, but the shaitan, what it does is when the shaitan knows that he's not going to get you from the sins. You're someone who's committed to the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. He knows that he cannot get to you from the normal traditional parts of sin. He's not going to expect you to go to a bar, a nightclub, a brothel, na'udhu all of the. He's not expecting you to do any of those things, right? So what he does is he puts you in a trial with your own religion, okay, by making you think that something that you're doing in the religion is beneficial, طيب, where in reality it is taking you away from the deen of Allah. By, as one example, as we've seen just now, that he makes it a distraction for you, that you only busy yourself with the art of recitation and never progress onto the art of reflection, tadabbur, and the tafsir and the ma'ani of the Quran. Okay, so you never take the higher step. You always busy yourself with just the recitation. Okay, and you will see this this is very common in our societies, especially the non-Muslims, the non-Arab societies, right? So much focus is given to memorizing the Quran. Or mashallah, we have 100,000 hufaz graduate, mashallah, just this year. What's the point? If the Prophet ﷺ in his 23 years of struggle produced somewhere around that number, right, of Sahaba, the best of creation after the Prophets, and they changed the entire world, right? They changed history. They changed everything. And compared to that, every single year we have those many graduates, coming out from the madaris. Where's the change? The change is that they are just qurra. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anh, he used to say that the Quran was revealed for tadabbur, and you've made it for recitation. You have confined yourself to its recitation only, without looking and pondering over its meanings. Tamam, inshallah. So all of these things, essentially, they come together when you understand this process. Shaitan wants his main purpose is not to make you fall into zina or drinking alcohol these are minor things for him. He wants you to commit kufr. He wants you to die in a state of kufr. Okay, and these are steps that he takes. For those who are practicing, he's not going to get to them from a traditional route, right? So he makes you he makes you maftoon in your own religion. He makes you you start grappling with fitness trials in your own religion. You start thinking about doing something which you think just like the Sufis, for example. They think they're doing something amazing by spending all this time in doing dhikr and so on and so forth. But really, they're far removed from the pondering of the Quran. And by Sufis, I mean the Sufis who are ghulat, who are who exaggerate, right? Who are into the speculative theology, right? Because we have a field of side of Sufism, which is not essentially Sufism, but the term Sufis is used for them, like the earliest Salaf, like Sufyan ibn Uyayna and Hassan al-Basri and others, for the Mujaddideen and the Mufassirin of the Tabi'een, for example. they're also labeled as Sufis, but their Sufism essentially is tazkiyah, the purification of the self and so on and so forth. Okay, this type of essentially is quote unquote Sufism. The terms don't really matter. This type of Sufism is not blameworthy because it is essentially just an explanation of the matters of the heart. Just like fiqh explains the matters of jurisprudence, aqidah or the books of aqidah, the subject of aqidah extrapolates the subject matter of belief and creed. Likewise, the books of spiritualism, zuhud and raqa'iq, these books they focus on that subject specifically, right? But anyway, I'm talking about those who are the extreme ones, right? So the point is that the shaitan wants you to. So the Shaykh Ibn Kathir rahmallah, he's saying that when you seek refuge from Allah Azza wa Jal, it is to prevent the shaitan from playing with you in that manner. Okay? And of course, seeking refuge with the right intention, with the right meaning in mind, not just a lip service to the statement. Because we have everyone saying A'udhu Billah, everyone knows A'udhu Billah, but it doesn't work for everyone, right? So it's always recitation with the meaning. So the meaning of seeking refuge, okay? The Shaykh says the meaning of seeking refuge before beginning the recitation is to prevent the reciter from being confused or distracted in their recitation, avoid being muddled, to protect them from the being hindered in reflection and contemplation. Okay, so for this reason, the majority of the scholars hold that seeking a refuge is to be done before the recitation. The Shaykh says before the recitation because there is a camp from the Sahaba who say that it should also be done at the end, or should be done at the end. Because Allah says, فَإِذَا قَرَأَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ. When you recite the Quran, then say A'udhu Billah. But we've talked about this in the last lesson as well, that it is to be recited at the beginning. Okay, inshallah, it is to be recited at the beginning. So the majority of the scholars hold that seeking refuge is to be done before the recitation, inshallah. All of these details will come later, inshallah, when we progress and we look into the books of tafsir, inshallah. For now, you must understand that seeking refuge essentially is to protect yourself from these traps of shaitan, from his trickeries and his treacheries, inshallah. Okay. The statement, indeed he has no authority over those who have believed and rely upon their Lord. Imam al-Thawri rahimahullah, he said, he has no authority over them to lead them into a sin they do not repent from. Okay, so the Imam al-Thawri rahimahullah, one of the tabi'in, he's mentioning some, as he's alluding to the same thing I've mentioned. The main purpose, the main mission of shaitan is to make you die in a state in which you have not repented from your sins, in which you, of course, ideally, for you to die in a state of kufr, if not a major sin, and then of course a minor sins, but major sins where you have not repented from them. Because Allah Azza wa Jal, once you repent from Allah to Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah forgives you. Okay, it's a promise. Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah always forgives His slaves, right? So long they're mukhlisin. And of course, it is up to Allah who He forgives and who He doesn't. But Allah Azza wa Jal has promised His slaves to He forgives them. He forgives them. He is a Tawwab. He's a Rahim. Okay, your Lord, your Rabb, Allah Azza wa Jal, your Khaliq, your Malik, all of the sifat of Kamal that He has, the characteristics of perfection that He has, all of them point to the same thing, that He does not want to punish you if only you are grateful to Him as your Creator, if only you are acknowledging of His blessings on you. Okay, starting from Iman all the way down to everything that you have in life. Okay, so that is the first thing. He has no authority over them to lead them into a sin they do not repent from. Okay, that's the primary meaning of this. That the shaitan, though for those who are mutawakkilin, those who rely on Allah Azza wa Jal with this refuge, when they say A'udhu Billahi, they mean it, and they truly rely upon their Lord in that, it is them who the shaitan will have no authority over. Okay, he will not be able to misguide them into kufr. They might still commit some minor sins, but he will not be able to guide them to the lower and the more baser aspects of sinning, where they don't repent or they commit kufr. Okay. Other ulama, they said it means that he has no proof or argument against them. Okay, i.e., that he will not be able to. So proof or argument, essentially the hujjah. The word in Arabic is hujjah. He will not be able to have any hujjah against them. So the meaning of having a hujjah is to say that is to one meaning would be to proclaim to Allah that, oh, it is not my doing, for example, right? I free myself from it. So he will not be able to free himself from the wrong that he's committed against humanity. Secondly, he will not be able to completely throw them into, essentially, his hujjah. The hujjah, it points to the lack of, there will be a lack of convincing. He will not be able to convince them to commit kufr, for example. Right? He will not be able. His wiswas will not be as effective. طيب. And so on so forth. Others said it is like the statement, except among your sincere servants. As Allah Azza wa Jal, He said in Surah Sa'd, that except among you, the shaitan said, I will misguide them, all of them, except in ibadaka al-mukhlasin, except your sincere servants. I will not be able to misguide them. Okay? So when Allah says that He has no authority over those who have believed and who rely upon their Lord, it is exactly those ones who are sincere, who are the sincere servants. So He will not be able to misguide them at all. Inshallah. طيب. Okay. Who are those upon whom He will be able to have an authority? He will be able to control and misguide and so on and so forth. He says, the Shaykh says, Ibn Kathir, he said, His authority is only over those who take Him as an ally. So the ayah here, His authority is only over those who take Him as an ally. Imam Ibn Kathir mentioned the statement of Mujahid. He said, it refers to those who obey Him. So when shaitan whispers something to them, okay, they obey him. Others said it means they have taken Him as a protector besides Allah. So they commit major kufr, essentially. Okay. طيب. Keep these two things in mind. Now we have done the first part. We moved on to this last part now. His authority is only over those who take Him as an ally. Right. It is also possible that the preposition bihi, so in the ayah, the word bihi is used. Through Him indicates causation, meaning they became polytheists due to their obedience to shaitan. It's essentially what the ulama who said, they take Him as a protector besides Allah. Okay, so they obey Him in a major obedience. طيب. Not just in shahawat, but also in things which Allah has commanded otherwise, and they obey the shaitan in it, and as a result they leave the fold of Islam, so on and so forth. Okay, and lastly, another meaning that can be taken from this is, it means, so His authority is only over those who take Him as an ally and those who associate partners with Him. It means He partnered with them in their wealth and in their children. In their wealth, by committing haram, and in children, one, the children of zina, adultery, and second, of children which are not, whose parents at the time of intercourse, they do not pronounce the dua of isti'adha. Okay? Allahumma jannibna shaytana. Right? وجنب الشيطان من يعني عاوز الدعاء اللهم جنبنا الشيطان وجنب الشيطان يعني كيف الدعاء اللهم جنبنا الشيطان وجنب الشيطان مما رزقتنا أو مما رزقتنا أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Okay, so this dua, actually those who don't recite this dua or something of this meaning, then their progeny is also at a risk of being harmed by the shaitan. Okay, inshallah. So if anyone wants to look at the du'as, inshallah, they can just open Hisn Muslim and you'll find all these du'as over there to do with the du'as of isti'adha are present in there, seeking refuge in the Dajjal, for example, at the end of the prayer, seeking refuge from Allah Azza wa Jal at the time of marital relations, and so on and so forth, inshallah. Tayyib, so let's rewind now, inshallah. Let's bring everything together. The shaitan wants to misguide you, and his greatest mission is to make you die in a state of kufr. Okay. If he fails in that, he wants you to die in a state of major sin where you have not repented. If he doesn't succeed in that, at least to die in a state of a major sin. If he doesn't succeed in that, then you die in a state of having committed lots and lots of minor sins where you have not repented. And then, lastly, in a state of minor sins where you have repented. Okay, so he wants you to fall into sin, but his major purpose is not to, like, committing zina, killing someone. All of these things are minor things for him, right? These are like they may seem big things to us. It seems like corruption to us and fasad to us, but for the shaitan, these are small things. The major purpose and his major mission is to lead people away from the tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay, so those of the believers, the Muslims, who in words and in meaning truly seek refuge with Allah from the shaitan and his cronies, and they believe in Allah as they do that, and they rely upon their Lord by believing in his refuge and taking the necessary steps in the sunnah to be protected from the shaitan. These are the people whom Allah Azza wa Jal will save, and the shaitan will not be able to have any type of authority over them, whether that authority be in the sense of obedience, that he causes them to start obeying him in minor things or major things which are only the right of Allah Azza wa Jal. So shahawat or shubuhat, essentially, as we discussed in the first book, and that is the first principle of knowledge as well. If you want to become a talib al-ilm, especially even before that stage, if you want to become someone, a Muslim who wants to take their religion seriously, you must fight these two battles. You must fight the battle of shahawat, and you must fight the battle of shubuhat. Shahawat means the base desires and whims, and shubuhat are your doubts to do with the creed and belief in Allah and so on and so forth. Okay, these two things. So the shaitan, those who truly seek refuge from Allah Azza wa Jal to the isti'adha and ta'awudh, he will not be able to misguide them, and he will not be able to have any authority over them in terms of obedience, in terms of sharing, being partnered with them in the haram wealth, in haram progeny, or progeny which is affected by the shaitan, or whose homes are like the graveyards where the salah is not performed, the Quran is not read. The heart becomes a graveyard where the Quran there's no heart. SubhanAllah, there's no portion of the Quran memorized. There's no portion of the day where the Quran is read or understood, for example. All of these things are the forms of authority that the shaitan practices over mankind. But it's only for those who ally with him, either in obedience, without knowing that they're allying with him, so disobedience to Allah and obedience of him, or they openly ally with him, being Satanists, or being kuffar, atheists, or mushrikeen, or openly allying with the shaitan. Okay? And likewise, more clearly, this association, this alliance is of an associating partners with Allah, committing major shirk. Okay? So if we seek refuge from Allah, okay, if we seek refuge from Allah Azza wa Jal, and we are sincere in that protection, in that refuge, inshallah, Allah Azza wa Jal will make sure that each and every one of us dies in a state of iman and tawheed, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Okay, Allah will protect you from the shaitan, and the shaitan will never be able to succeed in misguiding you and leading you away from the deen of Allah and the tawheed, inshallah. And with this, your last words will be the shahadatain. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Okay, may Allah Azza wa Jal grant all of us a husn al-khatimah, a beautiful ending upon iman, upon tawheed, upon subservience and servitude of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the practice of the sunnah, and staying away from kufr and bid'ah. May Allah Azza wa Jal all protect us and our progenies from the shaitan and his evil things, his treacheries and tricks. And Allah Azza wa Jal, may Allah Azza wa Jal make us a guiding light for the Ummah as well. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us a guiding light for the Ummah, all of us. Allahumma ameen. And with this, inshallah, we will conclude our class for this evening. If anyone has any questions, inshallah, you can send them in now. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And just to end this session, I remind all of you that Islam is a deen of tarbiyah. Islam is a deen of nurturing, positive nurturing upon spirituality, upon iman and tawheed. And these lessons of ta'awudh, they must be taught to young children from a very young age. Okay, I remind all of you who have children, who don't have children, who have children in the family, or will have children in the future. You must teach the importance of ta'awudh to your children, especially, and of course the mothers, they must know this, they must understand this, and they must teach this to the children. If your child is not having their lunch or their custard for the morning breakfast, something, you don't scare them with shayateen, or the ghost will come, or this bad thing will happen. Scare them with Allah Azza wa Jal. If you want to give anyone's khawf, anyone's fear, then give them the fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? And when the children become scared of the darkness, when they become scared of anything like for example, ghosts and whatnot, you teach them to say A'udhu Billah, and you teach them the hatred of shaitan, and you teach them to not be afraid of shaitan and the jinnat. Okay? Because these jinnat and the shayateen, they play on our fear. They play on your fear. When they know that you're afraid, they attack you. But when they know your tawheed is strong and your reliance upon Allah is rock solid, they cannot harm you. This is a principle in Islam, that anyone whose tawheed is firm, the shayateen cannot harm him. Okay, the shayateen cannot harm them. So you teach this to your children. Okay, that they must say A'udhu Billah whenever a sense of fear comes to them. Okay, inshallah. They must say A'udhu Billah when they get scared in the night, for example. They must say A'udhu Billah whenever they find anything abhorrent. Okay, something that puts them off, they should say A'udhu Billah. Right? This is part of the tarbiyah. We must teach this to our children, and we must teach this to our communities. To adopt the word this ta'awudh, the statement of ta'awudh, as a constant dhikr. Okay? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم من همزه ونفخه ونفثه. Okay. Yes, inshallah. If there's a question, you can ask them now, inshallah. Yeah, Shazib, you want to speak something? You want to say something?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, please.
So someone with strong tawheed and a firm aqidah versus somebody who does not have a strong aqidah and strong concept of tawheed, both of them doing the morning and evening adhkar, is there going to be a difference in how much impact it has the protection against the shayateen?
Yes, excellent question, mashallah. Barakallah feek. Huge difference. A huge difference. Okay, as I said, that someone who does not, everyone knows A'udhu Billah, everyone says A'udhu Billah, yes, and we're taught A'udhu Billah from a young age as Muslims who grew up in Muslim families, but it doesn't seem to have much of a difference for a lot of people. Why? Because they don't understand. So the meaning and internalization is one of those key ingredients which affects the positive effect of the adhkar and these statements, okay, and du'as and adhkar and so on and so forth. So definitely someone whose aqidah is strong, his practices and his iman is strong, inshallah, and then they say these adhkar, it's definitely going to have a much higher effect on them in terms of protection and refuge from Allah Azza wa Jal and special care, inayah, compared to someone who just does a lip service. Okay? Because you see, having a greater tawheed, having a stronger iman, it symbolizes something. It symbolizes someone's commitment to acting upon Islam. They've acting upon the little things they've learned in the deen of Allah. Okay? That's the only thing that raises the iman. Al-imanu yazidu wa yanqus. Al-iman, the faith of of a Muslim, a believer, it increases and decreases. Okay, your iman some days is higher, some days it's lower, and if you pay attention to when it's lower, it's because you've committed a sin or you have neglected some of your nawafil, some sunnahs, for example, or some obligations. Okay, And the days when your iman is strong, you realize that, okay, you know what, the reason why it's strong, why it's increased, why you're in a higher state of iman is because perhaps you went to a halaqah, you went to a lecture, you went to the the lecture of a sheikh, for example, and so on and so forth. Or maybe you went to the masjid and you sat down with some good brothers and had a nice conversation with them. That increased your iman. Or maybe you read a book. Okay, the Sahaba, they used to say that, O Messenger of Allah, when we are in your company, we see the Jannah and the Nar in front of us. It's as if we see the fire and the paradise in front of us. But when we are with our families, it's as if we forget. أو كما قال. طيب, so this is a reality. Al-iman yazidu wa yanqus. The iman increases and decreases. So anyone who acts upon the sunnah, his tawheed is going to be stronger as a result of his actions. Okay? And because of his actions, someone's actions have to be mindful for that iman to increase. It shows that that person with a higher tawheed, a stronger iman, definitely someone who's mindful of what he says, what he does, and because of his action, his implementation of the sunnah, the effect from his side, the seriousness that he's going to do dhikr with, and the care that he's going to receive as a result of those adhkar from Allah is going to be multiplied. Okay, whereas someone else, he's missing those ingredients. Of course, definitely, it's like you bake cookies and you put less sugar in something, and you add more vanilla extract and it becomes bitter, and makes sense. So these it's just you're missing key ingredients. Inshallah. Any other questions, inshallah? Barakallah feek for the beneficial question. Allahumma barik. On that question, I actually remember one of my mashayikh, he said to me once that those who learn the tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal and they study aqidah, the greatest of the shayateen, they attack them. So when we as tulab al-ilm and the few in the world who are trying to tread the path of sunnah, where the majority of the ummah is engulfed in bid'ahs and kufr and innovation, so on and so forth. At least some of us here and others around us, inshallah, other Muslims who are definitely and indeed a minority in the world at the moment, right? Who strive to practice their religion and stay true to their religion, and of course who find the practicing their religion like holding on to burning coal, as the hadith said, right? These types of people, they're not attacked or bothered by the lower levels of the shayateen from the jinn or ins. They are bothered and attacked by the jajila, the dajjals, the biggest of them, the big ifrits from these jinns. Okay? And I've told you, the way they want to attack you and I is not through making us fall into sins that we're not going to commit. Right? The shaitan knows very well that we're not going to commit those sins. We're not going to go that way. So he makes you adopt practices. You become a bit more aggressive. You become more, you exaggerate in things, and you start going overboard. And in the process, you start hurting yourself and your faith, and then you burn out, and you start losing out on the momentum that you had built for practicing the daily prayers and the adhkar and so on and so forth. Okay, so to always, so I remind myself and the students to always take the middle path, never go down the path of burnout. Always know your boundaries, inshallah. Always, of course, you try to stretch yourself beyond your comfort zones to increase your stamina and your tolerance of pain, and to grow yourself. Of course, those two things are important. But you must know your boundaries, and you must never go overboard in the practice of Islam. Otherwise, you'll be hurt. You'll be hurt, right? And you'll hurt your practice. You'll hurt your iman, and so on and so forth. Okay, so knowing that you are being attacked and bothered by the toughest of the shayateen, and your problems in life are going to be much more difficult than those who are around you. Okay, because of your inshallah because of your commitment to the Tawheed and the true Islam, inshallah. Right, and the revival of Islam, that is, right? We are treading the path of the Siddiqeen, right? I mentioned that we are seeking knowledge to revive the deen of Allah, and this is the path of the Siddiqeen. And if you are treading the path of the Siddiqeen, your troubles are going to be, maximized. They're going to be so maxed out that you are at some point going to start screaming out like the ayah says, Mata Nasrullah. When is the victory of Allah Azza wa Jal? Right? And in that moment, you must remember, Ala inna nasrullahi qareeb. That indeed the victory of Allah is near. The opening of Allah, the ease of Allah Azza wa Jal is near. All of you, I know the students personally, everyone is struggling through some very, very tough situations. Okay? Every single student that we have in this group, in our community, every single one has at one point or another have discussed their issues, right? So I know that every single one of you is struggling with something very, very hard. But let that be a glad tiding for you, inshallah. I say to you, abshir, or abshiru, become happy, inshallah. Be happy that Allah inshallah will ease your situations at one point. Allah is raising your ranks with this, and inshallah, with this effort, He's going to grant you much, much more in this dunya and the next, inshallah, in terms of your iman, in terms of the barakah in your life, in your family, in your wealth, and inshallah your da'wah as well, and of course many, many folds in Jannah as well. May Allah gather all of us in the highest levels of Jannah, al-Firdaus al-A'la, with the Anbiya, with the Shuhada, with the Salihin, and may we be from those who are granted the ru'ya of Allah Azza wa Jal, the vision of Allah Azza wa Jal twice a day. The hadith is authentic, as far as I know at this moment. Subhanallah. Allahumma ameen. With regards to excessive waswas of the shaitan, any practical things one could do to protect oneself from that? Okay, so firstly, as we said, ta'awudh, really and honestly and sincerely seek refuge with Allah Azza wa Jal. And secondly, busy yourself with action, beneficial action. We get waswas, we get all of these whisperings of the shayateen, mostly when we are sitting on our backs, reclining on our couches, doing nothing worth of importance and being good for nothing, right? That's when the shayateen, the attackers, and the whisperings become problematic. If you busy yourself with goodness, with acts of goodness, with ibadah, with help of your family, teaching others, studying, helping your community, for example, doing something positive every single day, or a project, inshallah, or something of that nature, you will see that you will not find time to pay attention to the wasawis. And then, of course, wasawis are a reality. They are going to happen no matter what you do. At that time, of course, you remind yourself that Allah Azza wa Jal knows what you don't know. Okay? So, depending on the types of wasawis that you're having, you must fight them. Okay? You must fight them, inshallah. And if it's something that is not current, that is not immediate, just leave that. Kick that out of your mind. Don't focus on it. Tayyib, inshallah. And if it is something of a nature which is of urgent, of something which pertains to something, then do istikhara and seek counsel from those who you trust. Okay. These three things I've mentioned, inshallah, they will definitely help you fight the wasawis, inshallah. But the most important thing is the first one. You seek refuge with Allah Azza wa Jal and busying yourself in the acts of khair and goodness and sunnah, because that will earn you the grace of Allah and the care of Allah, the inayah of Allah Azza wa Jal. And something very, very beneficial I wanted to mention in today's class, something of a glad tiding to all the students of knowledge, subhanAllah. The hadith, there's a hadith in Bukhari, I believe, where Sulaiman alayhi salam, he goes out. So it's in the bab of Salatul Istisqa, right? The prayer of asking for rain. So once Sulaiman alayhi salam with his people, he left his palace, And he went out with his army to pray the Salat al-Istisqa. And as he left, he saw a namla, an ant, reclining on its back with its feet raised to the sky. Subhanallah. And Sulaiman alayhi salam, when he saw the namla, the ant, reclining on its back and facing, its feet to the sky, he said to his army, "Return, all of you, for you have been granted rain because of the dua of someone who is other than yourselves." And he referred to the namla, the ant. طيب. Subhanallah. This hadith is very important. It shows to you that the dua of an ant, right, subhanallah, is mustajaba. Subhanallah, it's accepted. Okay, it's accepted. And the dua was beautiful. Subhanallah, the dua goes on something like that. Oh Allah, we are creation from your creation. So send us aghithna, send us rain. Subhanallah. And so Allah accepted that dua from an ant. And what do you think of someone? What do you think of someone about whom the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the one who treads the path of knowledge, the creatures inside the stones, the rocks, the mountains, and the fish in the depths of the sea, they make dua for this person, for his forgiveness and for his mercy. Subhanallah. For someone who treads the path of knowledge. Don't you think all those du'as are mustajaba? Inshallah. And I often remind myself that, as a human being, whenever I fall into sin and I fall into some shortcoming, I always remind myself that, it's always because of this path that I'm on, this path of knowledge, that Allah Azza wa Jal always pulls me back to something some work of khair. That I hope, inshallah, keeps removing and washing away the sins that we all commit, So you always keep treading this path, and even if you fall sort of short on this journey, sometimes you lose your track, you lose your path, and you go misguided in some aspect of your life. You have a shortcoming, you sin, but remember that just like a traveler is still called a traveler, even if he's lost in a valley for tens of, for many, many days. He's still a traveler. So a talib al-ilm, a student of knowledge, is still a student of knowledge, even if he is distracted or he loses his path or focus for months on end. If he keeps his intention of staying on that journey, he is a musafir. Okay, inshallah, he is a traveler. طيب, he's a talib al-ilm. And as soon as all he needs to do is just get back on track. That's it. And all of that, inshallah, will be all of that struggle. So long he's trying to constantly come back to the right path, all of that is being rewarded by Allah Azza wa Jal. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he mentioned something beautiful. He said, every single time an abd of Allah, he seeks tawbah from Allah Azza wa Jal, he always comes out of that state to a higher state of iman, a higher rank in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal. Every time you make tawbah, you commit a sin and you make tawbah, you come out of it to a higher rank of iman, subhanallah. You come out as a better person in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? Not that you should keep committing sins, but this is the reality that a human being, is kullu bani Adam khata. All the children of Adam alayhi salam are sinful, right? They all make mistakes. So you're bound to make mistakes, it's part of your nature, but those of you who are the most fearing of Allah, and in a perpetual sense, they are the ones who are the best of creation. Inshallah. Okay? Barakallahu feekum, jazakumullahu khaira, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله على النبي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. بارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.